again, and today I thought I'd do something different. It's not music, but I saw the Odyssey twice, and I read the Odyssey when I was in high school, so I thought I'd talk about my thoughts on the movie, my thoughts on Christopher Nolan, my thoughts on the whole IMAX thing. So there's a lot of mythos around Christopher Nolan as a director. He gets a lot of effusive praise from his actors in all of the interviews that they do. They've never worked on a set with anyone like him. He's super disciplined, super efficient. He doesn't sit in a traditional director's chair. He prefers to be up and moving and physically manipulating things. He's in there, in it with the actors, and he films in really difficult weather conditions. I think most notably probably on Dunkirk and the Odyssey. Where did he film in the Odyssey? Where did the Odyssey get filmed? Okay, so it was filmed across 6 countries: Morocco, Greece, Italy, Scotland, Iceland, and the Western Sahara. Oh, I wonder if that's where when he's with Calypso and all the sand is whipping around. I wonder if that's in the Sahara. Yeah, it says the White Dune portrayed Calypso's island, not inland. So he filmed in 6 countries, very expensive. I think he got a $250 million budget to make this movie. So, the problem I have with the way that people talk about Christopher Nolan is that he wants to make a project and he's going about doing it in a very expensive way and putting people through really difficult physical conditions. I read the Time magazine profile with Matt Damon, and it was on Christopher Nolan, but there were a lot of quotes from Matt Damon that I'll get to. But he was basically at one point the sand was whipping in her eyes. It turns out that it's the kite surfing capital of the world or something. Wherever they were filming, there was sand everywhere, and I don't know, it's why does this guy need to be praised? I just don't like the way that people talk about him. I think it's really annoying when they're just going on and on and on about how great he is, when it's this is a movie that he wanted to make. It's making him astronomically wealthy. It's making all of you astronomically wealthy. So I think Christopher Nolan, he's an exceptionally effective filmmaker. More than anything, he seems to have a rare ability to assemble hundreds of people and, kind of align them behind a single vision. In this case, it's the Odyssey. He's adapting a text, so it's not even really a story that he came up with or anything. So because of all of that, I don't think it's surprising that actors speak about him with such effusive praise, but I also think it's kind of something that he wants, or the studio wants them to do, so that they can justify the massive scale of these movies and how much money they're using up to make it and how much they're paying their actors to do it, and probably the wealth disparity between the crew and the actors. I don't know. I think there are countless creative, talented people who are never going to be given the kind of opportunities that Christopher Nolan has had. And I know that he started out making cheap films and all of that, but I don't think he needs that much praise. There's thousands of people working on this movie. Why are you praising this one guy so much? It's just so annoying when they do it in all the interviews. They don't talk about their craft or anything. They're always just going on and on about how amazing Christopher Nolan is. So anyways, in his Time magazine profile, they mentioned his cinematographer, Hoyte van Hoytema. I probably butchered that. Said he rigged hundreds of portable LEDs to mimic the precise color temperature of firelight. So I guess it was more orange, the LEDs would go orange or something, so that Nolan could shoot in any direction during the raid of the story scene. And I'm that sounds like an extremely hard physical job that required a lot of foresight and, actual intelligence and creativity. And there was no quotes like that about Nolan's process himself. It's always he doesn't use a chair, or he doesn't drink water, or he just drinks tea. It's well, what is he actually doing that's so interesting? He's getting cameras made, but he's not making the cameras. Someone else is making the cameras. Someone else is cutting and developing the film. He's just telling them to do it. It's a lot it's like Steve Jobs. It's a guy who just gets up there and presents. I feel that's kind of what Christopher Nolan is becoming. It's a Steve Jobs figure to me, with just the way that people are talking about him. I don't know anything about his actual process or what he does day to day as a director. And it's fine to keep that secret, but it's tell your actors to stop treating you like you're the messiah in all of these interviews. So annoying. And it's well, give me a tangible example of something really hard that he did. It's oh, he'll do anything that the actors are doing. It's hey, so he's on the boat with them. I don't know. I've just watched a lot of interviews where they just go on and on and on and on about how amazing Nolan is, and it's I don't care. I really don't care. I just think Hollywood in general should get rid of press tours. They're so sinister. It's like trying to like market their actors and get us invested in them as a brand instead of just selling their movie or talking about specific scenes in their movie. It's like sinister. They want us to be like personally connected to these people so that we like feel motivated to go see the movie or something. I don't know. I hate press tours. There are great memes and things that come out of it, but I just think I think it only works when you have like younger actors or like pop stars in your movie that anything interesting comes out of it. Okay, so more about the Time magazine profile. I actually thought it was interesting. Oh yeah, they said Cersei, that was my favorite part of the movie, and they mentioned something about her. They said Cersei, an archetype in Homer's version, and I think the archetype that she fills in Homer's version is like the dangerous enchantress, the witchy, unchecked power, loss of rationality kind of person. And they said that Nolan humanized her in his movie, but I kind of think he made her just seem like a whiny witch. Like, she is the most objectively interesting character in the Odyssey, I think, because she has powers and she like actually does fun stuff with them. Like, she turned all the men into pigs. Iconic behavior. And they were pigs. Did you like see the way they were eating? Like, I've never seen anybody eat like that. I thought that was crazy. And with their big bowls, and they were just gobbling it up. And then the food started like turning into something, like it was solidifying, and then they were like choking on it. That was like quite disturbing, but gotta give it up to Cersei and her originality. But it's like they also did just show up into her house like expecting food and expecting to be cared for, and I'm like, she is like minding her own business by the sea, and she turned her sister into a raven. That's cool. I think her sister likes being a raven. I love Cersei, and I don't think he humanized her in if humanizing means just making her annoying and less powerful, sure. You gonna settle by? Yeah, so I'm annoyed with the relentless praise about Nolan, and I don't think he did a good job humanizing Cersei, and I don't think she needs to be humanized because she's not a human. She's like an all-powerful witch. So now I'm going to get into the cast. Okay, so the first person that shows up on your screen is I forget if it's Travis Scott or if it's Elliot Page, but I'm gonna start with Elliot Page. So Elliot Page plays Sinon, who's actually not in the Odyssey. I was shocked to find out. Even though I read the Odyssey, it was like 5 years ago at this point, so forgive me if I forget things. I'm actually gonna reread the Iliad. This has inspired me. But anyways, so Elliot plays Sinon, who's actually not in the Odyssey. He's a character from the Aeneid, which I think is post both the Iliad and the Odyssey. I think comes after both of those stories in like the chronology of Homer's works, but I think actually the Aeneid is not one of Homer's work. It's by a guy named Virgil. So anyways, Sinon is a treacherous agent of the Greeks who misleads the Trojans into bringing the Trojan horse into their city. So like the shot, it kind of like the movie starts and he's like on the beach and he's like sitting on a sand dune, and the horse is like sinking, and it's sinking in the ocean. Like it's like half in the ocean, like buried in the sand, and it's like kind of like tilted over. And I think Nolan was using that as like a metaphor of like how pitiful it was, and like, oh, why would anyone think this is a gift? And like I think he wanted it to look destroyed so that the Trojans wouldn't be threatened by it, and so they were like a little bit more justified in bringing this random giant gift into their country. But as everyone knows, the Greeks are hidden inside of the Trojan horse, and they're just using it as a ploy to get into the city of Troy, so there's basically three main characters: Odysseus, Menelaus, and Agamemnon. Odysseus is like the smart one. Menelaus, he's married to Helen of Troy, and that's why they want to get into Troy, because Helen has been kidnapped by a guy named Paris, who has like the gods' blessings and the gods' favors, and that's how he got to kidnap Helen, was the gods like helped him out doing that. And then what else? Oh, and then Agamemnon, he also wants to get into Troy, but more for like financial reasons. I think in the movie, Matt Damon's character mentions that Agamemnon wants to get in so he can secure all of the trading routes that go out of Troy. That's why Agamemnon wants to get in. He's the one in like the black shiny armor, and curly hair, who's actually played by Ben Safdie of Safdie brother fame. And he is the one that didn't work on Marty Supreme, so he gets to live another day for me. I hated Marty Supreme. Worst movie ever made. Like shock people and use on like clip and mock on TikTok and stuff to like feed the outrage machine. I think that was definitely why they decided to put Daddy Robert Pattinson's line. I thought my favorite scene with him, I like when he's carrying the dog. I like the way that he carries the dog out, and he kind of does protect Telemachus in that scene. So I liked that a lot. And Anne Hathaway almost fell for his charms. She did, you know? So overall, what would I say my favorite scene was? I loved Cersei's lair and where she lived there. I thought that was great. I loved her turning them into pigs. Apparently that was like practical effects, so hats off to whoever did that. That was excellent work. And she was like, return to your disguises, which I think is a line from Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey, who put out a scathing review. Wait, I need to read some of it. Emily Wilson Odyssey review. She said, Nolan shouldn't have written the movie himself. Oh, we need these pop-ups. Okay. We need the protagonist with detailed, believable emotion, William says. But these desires seem stripped from Odysseus. He doesn't seem to want food. He doesn't seem to want intimacy. What does he want? Yeah, because he didn't really want to go home. He just wants to honor the dead, I guess. Nolan cited Wilson's translation in discussing his approach to the film, but Wilson said she was disappointed with the adaptation, and especially by Nolan's rendering of the central character. In her translation, she described Odysseus as a complicated man. He outwits the Cyclops and constructs an oversized wooden horse, which allows the soldiers to ambush the Trojans and win the war. Okay, that also happens in the movie, Miss Wilson. He's clever and smart and therefore a fascinating character, Wilson says, but she adds, the movie gives us a version of Matt Damon as Odysseus, who is not required to be smart. Instead, he is just constantly troubled by anxiety about his role in the Trojan horse and Trojan War. That's a shame. Interesting. I think that's kind of a myopic read on the movie. I think he definitely has a lot of shame about what happened in Troy. I don't know. I think she's definitely trying to make headlines for sure. But she says, I do think it would have been better if Nolan had hired a scriptwriter. I agree. Because that would have solved a lot of issues. But she says it's still worth seeing, and she's happy that like the Odyssey is in popular culture at the moment. She said, I would have been ashamed to have written any part of this. Wow. That's a tough blow. Mr. Nolan. He also said in his Time Profile magazine, when he was kind of being confronted about the, only writing movies that like center men, kind of like tortured men who like are trying to find their way home or trying to mend relationships, like Batman, like Interstellar, like Inception, like The Odyssey, Dunkirk, like all of his movies are male centric. And he is a man, so maybe that's fair, but he also, like the women that he writes generally don't have a lot of interiority, generally don't have a lot of interests outside of male attention, like male gazy desires and things like that, and they're usually catered towards the male lens. And that's just frustrating when you have a character like Cersei and you have a character like Calypso who are so like fascinating. Like Cersei, at least in the Percy Jackson books, also written by a man, is one of the most interesting and complex characters of all time. Like she has a relationship with Percy, but like she also has all like her own desires and like things that she wants out of her life. It's crazy. Rick Riordan, better writer than Christopher Nolan. I'm saying it, we've all been saying it. He can write women. He can write like Annabeth Chase. Christopher Nolan could never. That's what I'm saying. Like men can, like he could do a better job than he is. That's all that people are saying. And he said in his Time Profile interview that like you can't like take in everybody's critiques or you'll be paralyzed, but it's like this is a real issue you have and you're still choosing, like, this is it's your life, it's your creative expression, like, but you're also, it's not just your creative expression, because you're making these like large scale giant franchise films with like hundreds of people, both men and women, working on them, and they're gonna become a major part of the cultural zeitgeist, and they're gonna be probably the most consumed media of the year in terms of film and like Hollywood movies. So you do have a responsibility to portray women in a complex way, and I think you need help writing your scripts. I agree with Miss Emily Wilson. Yeah, why didn't you contact her to help come like write the script? Like why didn't I don't know who had their hands on the screenplay, but if it was really just written by Nolan himself, I think that can really explain like the flattening of not just the female characters, like the male characters characters are pretty flat as well. Anyways, yeah, I feel bad about the scathing review that Miss Wilson gave, but you know, it's fair. She's had her hands on this text way before Nolan did. Overall though, I think definitely the best thing about the movie is the way that the ocean and like the mountains and nature and like all the way that all of that was shot, especially like when you have like the dark blue water and then you have like the sun and like they're sailing off into the midnight sun, which was Penelope's dream, not Odysseus's dream. So female characters ruling the world. Who run the world? Anyways, so yeah, I think the way that the ocean was shot, the IMAX cameras, it's all cool, and I think I would give the movie like a 8.5 out of 10 and like a 4 out of 5. I think that's fair. I think my favorite scene was the Cersei scene where she's turning them all into pigs and they're eating their soup and all of that. Second to that would probably be when Penelope and Telemachus are having conversations, or the Penelope and Antonius scene when he is like confronting her about unraveling her loom. I thought that was also a very good scene. Least favorite part of the movie, when I say that, the first thing that pops into my head is the Cyclops, just because it was kind of giving me like Attack on Titan. I don't know, like it was just like soft, crunching, like eating humans. I didn't like it. And I think, I don't know, like, I think they could have made the Cyclops a lot more interesting because he could talk, but then he didn't really do anything with that in the movie, and they cut the whole nobody trick, which really does seem like it's kind of Odysseus's, like, signal, like, I'm smart calling card, like, I'm clever calling card. I also wish we had seen what had happened to that guy who, like, swam off to the sirens, because I think the sirens are, like, monsters that eat you. I don't know. Kind of want to see that. What else? Oh, the second time I rewatched it, I realized that, you know how Penelope's character is always worried about the sea people that are gonna come and like destroy Ithaca? I didn't realize that was Odysseus and his men, because they had been like jumping on all of these islands and like kind of plundering them and like zapping their resources. And so Odysseus and his men, by trying to come home in the way that they did with such like reckless abandon, they were destroying the place that they were trying to return to, because Ithaca had become swarmed with like darkness and like fear and suitors, and it's like all of this is because of what they were doing to all of these other islands. Like the stories got back to them and it was destroying Ithaca. Odysseus and his travelers were destroying Ithaca through their journey. I thought that was interesting. I didn't pick up on that the first time, that the sea people that Penelope was afraid of was Odysseus and his men, but she didn't know that and he didn't know that. You are the people from the sea. What else? Yeah, I'm gonna give the movie an 8.5 out of 10. How I feel about it. Thought it was good. Definitely sacrificed a little bit of character development and nuance for scale, but you know, not every movie can be like Obsession, I guess. That is the story of character development for sure. Thank you. This is Julia. Goodbye.